Right now, in the spring of 2026, the skies over the Middle East belong entirely to the United States of America. If you look up, you will not see a fair fight. You will see the absolute unrivaled apex of human military engineering. American F-35 Lightning IIs and B-2 Spirit stealth bombers move through the airspace with complete impunity, operating as invisible apex predators. The United States Air Force and Navy possess a level of technological supremacy that is so overwhelmingly dominant, anything left sitting on the surface of the Earth is instantly identified by satellite, targeted, and vaporized. Faced with this terrifying reality, the Iranian military quickly realized a brutal truth. Standing toe-to-toe with the American military on the surface is geographical suicide. So, they did the only thing a vastly outmatched force could do. Out of sheer desperate necessity, they abandoned the sky, they abandoned the surface, they took their entire war machine and burrowed it deep into the crust of the Earth. Welcome back to US Geography. Today we are looking at the ultimate clash between unmatched American military dominance and the ancient rocks of the Middle East. We are going to explore how the overwhelming lethality of the US armed forces literally forced the 2026 war underground, why Iran had to transform its massive mountain ranges into subterranean fortresses just to survive the week, and why the map dictates that the United States is no longer just fighting an enemy army, it is fighting the very geology of the planet itself. To understand why this war has moved underground, you first have to understand the staggering, unmatched capability of the United States military in 2026. The American war machine operates on a doctrine of total domain awareness and absolute air superiority. Through a multi-billion-dollar constellation of highly advanced spy satellites, high-altitude surveillance drones like the RQ-4 Global Hawk, and next-generation infrared sensors, the United States military can see practically everything that moves across the Middle East. If a conventional military adversary tries to move a column of tanks across a flat desert or park a mobile missile launcher in a forest, American intelligence algorithms instantly flag it. Within minutes, a precision-guided munition dropped from an aircraft that the enemy radar didn't even know was there turns that million-dollar asset into a smoking crater. For the strategists in Tehran, this presented an unsolvable math problem. They are facing an American military that is infinitely better funded, infinitely better trained, and technologically decades ahead of them. Iran's conventional air force relies on aging aircraft from the 1970s. Their surface-to-air missile batteries are routinely jammed, blinded, and dismantled by American electronic warfare platforms before they can even fire a single shot. The geography of the open surface, the vast deserts and plateaus we talked about in previous videos, became a lethal trap for Iran. If they stayed above ground, the brilliant precision of the United States Air Force would systematically dismantle their entire military infrastructure in a matter of days. All to avoid total annihilation by the most powerful military force in human history, Iran was forced to completely change its relationship with its own geography. They had to find an armor thick enough to stop American bombs, and the only armor on Earth thick enough was the Earth itself. This brings us to the geology of the Zagros Mountains. When you look at a topographical map of western Iran, you see massive, jagged mountain ranges stretching for hundreds of miles. But to understand the military strategy here, you have to look deeper than just the elevation. You have to look at the rock. The Zagros Mountains were formed by the violent, ongoing tectonic collision between the Arabian Plate and the Eurasian Plate. This incredibly intense geographical pressure did not just push the Earth upward, it compressed it. The mountains here are heavily composed of highly compacted limestone, dolomite, and extremely dense bedrock. For Iran, this specific geology was their only saving grace against the overwhelming might of the US military. Digging a tunnel in the soft sand of the Iraqi desert is relatively easy, but those tunnels collapse instantly under the concussive force of an American airstrike. But carving a tunnel into the compressed bedrock of the Zagros Mountains is a completely different story. The dense rock provides immense, naturally occurring structural integrity. Iran didn't choose to spend billions of dollars and decades of backbreaking labor hollowing out these mountains because they wanted to. They did it out of absolute terrified necessity. They knew that American bunker-busting bombs are marvels of modern engineering, capable of piercing dozens of feet of reinforced concrete. Therefore, the only way to protect their command centers and missile stockpiles was to put hundreds of feet of solid, compressed mountain rock between their assets and the American bombers circling effortlessly above them. They had to use millions of years of tectonic geography as a physical shield against American ingenuity. The result of this geographical desperation is a vast hidden network of subterranean bases that intelligence agencies refer to as missile cities. Because moving a ballistic missile across the surface of Iran is an automatic death sentence under the watchful eyes of American satellites, Iran had to build an entire logistical supply chain completely cut off from the sun. Deep within the Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges, there are hundreds of miles of interlocking tunnels, some buried up to 1,600 feet beneath solid rock. These aren't just small caves, they are massive, sprawling subterranean complexes with their own independent power grids, ventilation systems, and living quarters. They are designed to allow the Iranian military to operate, sleep, and prepare for war entirely in the dark. The tactics they are forced to use highlight the sheer dominance of the US military. Because Iran cannot establish permanent launch pads on the surface, knowing American Tomahawk cruise missiles would obliterate them instantly, they use a highly restrictive shoot and scoot method. They load ballistic missiles onto massive railway cars deep inside the mountain. When the time comes, massive blast doors built into the side of a cliff face slide open. The missile rolls out onto a tiny, highly vulnerable ledge, fires its payload into the sky, and then frantically rolls back into the dark mountain tunnel before an American strike can completely wipe it off the map. It is the ultimate tactic of a severely outmatched military hiding from a vastly superior global superpower. But the United States military is not easily deterred by rocks. Knowing that adversarial nations would attempt to use geography to hide from American air power, the brilliant engineers at the Pentagon and Boeing developed the ultimate kinetic response, the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or the MOP. The MOP is an absolute titan of American military engineering. It is a 30,000-pound GPS-guided bunker-busting superweapon. It is specifically designed to completely bypass standard defensive fortifications and deliver a catastrophic payload deeper into the earth than any other non-nuclear weapon ever created. Deployed exclusively from the majestic, stealthy B-2 Spirit bomber, the MOP is encased in a highly specialized, ultra-hardened steel alloy casing. When released, it uses sheer kinetic mass and the pull of gravity to punch straight through layers of earth, concrete, and rock before a delayed fuse detonates thousands of pounds of high explosives deep underground, entirely collapsing the tunnels and burying everything inside. However, the 2026 war has become a battle of extreme physics versus extreme geography. Even a weapon as spectacularly powerful and technologically advanced as the American MOP has a physical limit based on the laws of physics. Facilities like the Iranian nuclear enrichment site at Fordow were intentionally built deep inside a hollowed-out mountain near the city of Qom. Iran deliberately placed these critical assets beneath roughly 300 feet of dense, solid rock. The United States Air Force can hit a target the size of a dinner plate from the stratosphere. But piercing through 300 feet of solid mountain bedrock is an incredibly difficult physical hurdle. The geography of the mountain absorbs the immense shockwave of the blast, acting as an ancient, unyielding armor. The 2026 conflict is dragging on not because the US military lacks the skill or the technology, but simply because the enemy has cowered so deeply behind the Earth's crust that digging them out is a monumental geological task. This desperate subterranean strategy isn't just limited to the mountain ranges of the interior, it extends all the way to the coastline of the Persian Gulf. And the reason for this is, once again, the terrifying power of the United States Armed Forces, specifically the unmatched might of the United States Navy. The US Navy does not just patrol the oceans, it completely owns them. A single American carrier strike group deployed to the Persian Gulf represents more concentrated mobile firepower than the entire militaries of most nations combined. With Aegis combat systems, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and carrier-air wings ready to launch at a moment's notice, any Iranian naval vessel that attempts to engage an American ship in open water is essentially committing suicide. Because the US Navy would instantly turn any Iranian port or surface fleet into artificial reefs, Iran was forced to adapt its coastal geography. The southern coastline of Iran is incredibly jagged, featuring steep cliffs that drop directly into the waters of the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has spent years violently hollowing out these coastal cliffs, creating hidden, subterranean naval bases right at the waterline. They hide fleets of small, fast-attack boats and anti-ship missile launchers inside these man-made coastal caves. They are forced to use these hit-and-run swarm tactics, darting out from the rocks, firing, and desperately retreating back into the caves. Because because they know that standing and fighting a glorious open water naval battle against the majestic United States Navy is an absolute impossibility. Plus, the geography of the rocky coast is the only thing standing between their small boats and complete American naval annihilation. But hiding from the most powerful military on Earth comes with a massive, terrifying geographic catch. By burrowing hundreds of feet into the Zagros Mountains to escape the righteous fury of the US Air Force, the Iranian military has placed itself at the absolute mercy of a completely different, unpredictable force: tectonic plates. As we covered in our very first video, Iran sits directly on top of several major, highly active geological fault lines. It is one of the most seismically volatile countries on the entire planet, prone to sudden, catastrophic earthquakes that can level entire cities in seconds. By violently hollowing out the bedrock, blasting massive caverns, and removing millions of tons of structural stone to build their missile cities, the Iranian military has inherently weakened the natural structural integrity of the mountains themselves. They have built their most critical military infrastructure inside a known earthquake zone. This creates a terrifying double-edged sword for the regime. While the hundreds of feet of rock above them might temporarily protect them from an American bunker buster, it also traps them. If a major earthquake strikes, or if the repeated massive concussive impacts from American bombs dropping on the surface trigger a localized seismic event, those tunnels could collapse entirely on their own. The United States military might not even need to pierce the bunker directly. The unstable geography of Iran could do the job for them, as burying the underground army in a permanent, inescapable tomb of their own making. When you look at the grueling reality of the 2026 war, the narrative becomes crystal clear. The United States military has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it possesses absolute dominance over the land, the air, and the sea. They possess a technological supremacy so absolute that it forced an entire nation to literally dig a hole and hide inside it just to survive. The balkanization of the Middle East, the proxy wars, and the subterranean fortresses are all symptoms of the exact same geographical truth. You cannot fight the United States in the open. Iran's geography, its deep bedrock, its towering mountains, and its jagged coastlines is not a symbol of their strength. It is a symbol of their extreme desperation. The map dictates that the United States isn't struggling against the enemy's technology. The United States is simply having to systematically dismantle the Earth's crust to finish the job. Thank you for watching US Geography. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible power of the American military and the extremes of subterranean geography, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what region we should map out next. I'll see you again next week.